Hey, Andrew.
Hey David, how are you?
I'm doing well. How are you doing?
Not too bad, sir. Just staying safe here, just trying to adjust, this quarantine, everything that's been going on in the world right now, which I think I speak for the majority of the world's population now. We're all just trying to get through this.
Yes, I understand, but don't call me sir.
Okay.
You can call me David
Oh,
or David. David works, but my mom named me David. So I think that's the criteria, right? Whatever
okay.
your mom calls you. Now, so your mom named you Andrew, it's not Andres.
Well, my mom calls me Andres.
Oh, there you go. So
Uh,
it's
yeah,
Andres then.
yes, but everybody calls me Andrew, I guess, um, yeah, my American name, I guess you can say so. But
Gotcha.
my parents, they call me by Andres.
Gotcha.
So
Okay. Well, it's up to you how you want to be called, but
okay, okay,
I'm
uh,
calling you Andres. That's my criteria. So,
okay. Well, I'll call you David then.
there you go. That works. So what's going
um,
on? Tell me, what's your question? Or I know you have a series of questions potentially.
mhm.
So let's get this going.
Okay. Well, first off, I want to tell you thank you for taking time out of your busy schedule just to kind of chat with me for a little bit. Um, it definitely it means a lot to me, and I'm sure it probably means a lot to um, other people that might be in my position right now
Mhm.
who want to find more about this discipline and what things come with it, and there's so many things that I truly want to learn about in this field. And um, I'm like I said, I'm always just wanting to get as much valuable information as I can and learn from individuals who have been in the field, who've been successful in the field for many years, and knows what it takes to be a successful counselor. And
Sounds good.
yeah, so I want to thank you again for taking the time. Um, so uh, first off, I guess you'll probably wondering how I came across how I found you.
Yeah.
Um,
Tell me.
yeah, so um, I have a LinkedIn page, which I'm sure many of us do, professionals in the field now, and myself, in graduate school, really being exposed to the professional world. Being exposed to a whole bunch of different professionals in the fields, numerous fields. And so, it's kind of neat how LinkedIn works. When you put your information in there, and then it starts to link you up with people that you might know. And
Yeah.
I just so happened to come across your LinkedIn profile, and I saw your page and your education, your history, and your business, and
Hmm.
all that. And I was really intrigued by your business, and your message behind it and what you do. And so I thought it doesn't hurt to try and ask, and I thought I would reach out to you just to for some guidance and some advice, as a graduate student. you know
So you are getting your master's now
that's correct.
in counseling, or what's the field?
Yes, clinical mental health counseling is my
Okay,
degree.
perfect. So that will usually organically lead you to what in Texas we call an LPC, right? A
Hmm.
licensed professional counselor. And is that what you want to eventually get?
Yes, yeah.
Okay.
I originally I want to be a psychologist, and I guess this will kind of go into my first question here. And I feel a lot of students kind of get caught up between the two. You know, I feel students, when they see a PsyD or a PhD, I understand that there are some differences between a PsyD and a PhD. One is more client therapeutic based, and the other one is more catered to research
Hmm.
based. And so it just depends on what student is looking for what. But I feel a question that often gets brought up, that I'm hoping you can answer, in your opinion, is you know people aren't sure whether or not they want to go that extra 4 5 years to get their doctorates, that's, to be a psychologist, to provide therapy. I know, there's students that contemplate on doing that when they can also provide therapy by just getting their master's as well. So I kind of want to know your opinion on that. For myself, I enjoy research. There are 2 articles that are being submitted for approval right now that I've done with my a psychologist that I work with here.
Great.
Those are waiting to be approved right now. So I definitely enjoyed the clinical side of things, but um, I've always enjoyed, therapy and the therapeutic approach for clients and to our communities. So I want to know your opinion on that.
Yeah, I think that education is fantastic. That's great if you have the time, the money, the resources to go through getting 20 doctorate degrees. Hey, go for it. More power to you. But then there's a sense of practicality too, that some folks, they want to get into the helping profession sooner rather than later. So for those who have a master's level degree, then there are options, right? So in the state of Texas, it's going to be different from people from different states. But all states have a path to being a counselor, a mental health provider with a master's level degree. So for me, it was a matter of practicality. Now, will I be going back to school and going through the hoops of getting my PhD so that people can call me Dr. Martin? Maybe I will, maybe I won't. But at the time, I couldn't wait to go through all of that. For me to have, talk about practicality. I'm an immigrant. I came here with 2 suitcases and a few dollars to my name, like typical immigrant story. So practicality, determined that I couldn't wait to go back to school and get more degrees. So people have access to get licenses. In Texas, we look at LPC, LMFT, that's licensed marriage and family therapist, and LCSW, so that's the social work route. And those 3 licenses will allow you to practice as a mental health provider in the state of Texas. Of course, you could also go the extra mile and become a licensed psychologist. And for that, you need a doctorate degree in order for you to do that. So, hey, I'm not mad at anyone who wants to spend more time and money. Now it's a lot of money, I was able to get through school primarily through scholarships, but there's some folks who I know are investing a lot of dollars to get through it. So if you're in a position where the practicality is that you need to be able to have an income with a master's level program, then by all means, don't sell yourself short. I mean, that's good.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that point. As far as the practicality, for myself, that's kind of where I'm at. Like really wanting to. I really at this point in my life right now. Now things can change later on, but for me at this point in my life, I've kind of already been exposed to the field in my current role right now in my job. I provide mental health services to at-risk youth here in San Antonio in the school district. So, I've already kind of gotten my feet wet, and me right now, I kind of really want to get more exposed into the field right now as of, continuing to go to school. Now, will that change? Just as you mentioned, possibly, but it's more for me, I feel at this point, it's more practical for me to go and try to get more exposure to, providing mental health services to my community here. So thank you for that.
Sure.
Let's see here. Okay. So one of the questions that I had, and actually this was one that I feel a lot of people, even students such as myself, have not trouble. Yeah, I guess you could say trouble trying to figure out. But that is, what is the best approach when wanting to find supervisor, for your hours. I know in my job, in the organization that I work with, I do work with social workers and LPCs, and some of the LPCs are LPCSs, so
Yeah.
they do provide some supervision hours for me. But uh, I know that there are other ways that you can receive your hours. So I want to know what's the best approach, because I know in the state of Texas we're required to have 3,000 hours to be completed before we can actually start practicing on
Well,
our own. So
before you can have a full license, right? You get
right,
a temporary license that we call, don't like the word, but it is what it is. We say LPC intern, and
mm-hmm.
every LPC intern needs to be supervised by an LPC supervisor.
Yeah. So you know, I know that you're only given a certain amount of time to complete those hours, and so what I want to ask you was, when you were doing your supervision hours, what methods did you take? What did you learn from those, from that time? Was there, um, did you feel you could have gotten your hours a lot faster, or you know what I mean? I know some people, I guess everybody's situation is different as far
Well,
as,
the minimum, the shortest time that it can possibly take you as of today, we're talking the last day of April in 2020. So it cannot take you less than 18 months since they give you that license. And they're going to put an expiration date on that license, and it cannot take you more than 5 years. So I was close to the 18-month mark because I had 2 jobs, but not everyone is going to be willing or able to do that.
mm-hmm.
Now, I had a full-time job. I was newly married, no kids, and our agreement was that I'm going to go get those hours knocked down so that I can get my full license. So I had a full-time job that I worked for one of the biggest organizations that provides mental health in the whole Harris County, in the Houston area. What used to be called MHMRA of Harris County. Now it's called the Harris Center. But I worked there full time, and in addition to that, I was part of a group practice, and I was doing hours in the evenings and weekends. Now, I don't recommend that to everyone, but if you're able to do that and you want to, go for it and get those hours done fast. In terms of supervision, my approach it comes from a developmental model of supervising interns. And what we mean by that is that when you first start, it's okay for you to be green, right? And have lots of questions and not know about either clinical things or administrative things. And by the end of the program, by the end of the time together, I want to treat you as an equal, like from LPC to LPC. And hopefully by then, I've helped you create a framework for what an LPC does and doesn't do. What is good about the work that you do and how you can do that well and protect yourself and your client, and from what's really dangerous and you shouldn't even think about it, right? So in between, there's your understanding of what an LPC does, and that's my job to help you understand what those two things are, both from a clinical perspective, how do you assess people well, how do you come up with good interventions, and also from an administrative perspective of, I know the rules and regulations in the state of Texas for that. So if your supervisor is willing and able to help you in that journey, you got yourself a good one. If not, then it really doesn't matter about the style or the even the theoretical background. If you are not in the process of developing as a professional, I would question whether or not that's a good fit. So the way I do it is just like we're having this conversation, is when an intern wants to become my intern, we'll have an interview and see. And if it's a green light for both, we move forward. And I, hold no hostages. People can change their minds. And in very rare occasions do I change my mind about, what, this professional relationship cannot continue unless I see A, B, and C in place. But sometimes that happens. Sometimes that's the case.
Yeah, I definitely, just from speaking with, the psychologist that I did my intern with, who I still intern with now, and just other students, that's kind of the approach they've given me is, you kind of have to go out there and do some networking a little bit and really try to
Sure.
find an LPS that, kind of is willing to do the things that you just mentioned. And it's not just, they're not just there just wanting to give you hours. You really have to find that connection, like you said. And I think it's very important um, to do that. And so, for me, I know I'm still kind of early in the stages. I haven't been graduated yet, but like I said, for me, these things are important at this time, so that way I'll be uh, better prepared when that time comes. And hopefully try to have um, some sort of establishment with an LPS whom I might be able to go and get my hours from. Um, and so,
Well, get your supervision. Maybe you're lucky enough to get hours from them,
yes,
but get your supervision, because there are some
yes,
supervisors, some LPC supervisors who might just strictly supervise you without
mm-hmm,
giving you the option of getting any hours under their
okay,
organization. And there are other supervisors who might not supervise you unless you do hours under their umbrella. So,
mm-hmm,
you just also need to think about what setting you're wanting to practice, both now as an intern and then future. Are you trying to build a private practice? So the interns that we have around here, many of them, their goal is to one day be on their own and have their private practices. Some of them stick around and never leave the group practice because I guess they enjoy being around us and we enjoy being around them so much so that they don't want to leave. But it's okay if that's in your perspective to know, wait a minute, I might know about the different theories of counseling, but I don't know how to build a business. And I want to get paid. Up till now I've been paying to learn. Now I want to get paid while I learn. And that's a wonderful opportunity that maybe
mm-hmm.
that LPC supervisor can give you is, hey, work with me so that you learn the business side of what it is to be in private practice.
Yep.
Not all LPC supervisors provide that option, and not all interns want that. There's some folks who are like, look, I'm happy with my nonprofit, 9 to 5 job. I want my evenings for myself or my family. I want my weekends. I don't want to start a private practice one day. So that's okay. That's not me, but that's okay.
Yeah, I think for me, uh, I've always pictured myself wanting to own my own business, my own private practice. And, uh, I, um, I guess that'll kind of lead into my next question
Mm-hmm.
is, what is, and I guess you kind of just outlined it there, that's kind of my goal, hopefully, is, while I'm interning, um, with an LPC, hopefully in private practice, is to try to learn the more business aspects because, I know they really don't, and I could be wrong, but I know you probably don't learn much about the business side of owning your own private practice in graduate school, other than your counseling theories and
Right.
all that. So,
Likely not. Right.
and so, is it? I've heard some people say, "Hey, it might be worth it to to invest in some business courses." I know that I've heard that, and um, but I feel like there's so much information out there that I could learn from the
Of course.
business side because I've you hear and you see a lot of stories of uh, private practice not doing so well for these LPCs for a variety of reasons and I definitely don't want to fall into that statistic, definitely.
Right.
um and so what is your advice just from from what you learned then and what you know now, what is some advice that you can give as far as wanting to start your own practice? And I've had this question, whether or not is it, when you're fully licensed by the state to actually start practicing, is
Yeah,
it better to wait to go into private practice first and build your clientele, with an organization first, and then go and transition out into private practice?
that's
Or is,
how a lot of people do it. Yeah. Yeah,
yeah,
but in the meantime, you can be learning, and yes, there are people trying to monetize the learning process a whole lot. But again, we go back to whether you need to be practical or you want to just bury your head in books, and neither of those two are evil. So let me make that clear. I'm not saying that if you go get an MBA, you're wrong. I'm just saying I didn't get one because I didn't want to invest the time and energy and money that it takes, right? So what can you do? Well, you don't have to reinvent the wheel. There are a lot of different businesses that operate in very similar ways, and you can learn how those businesses are successful, right? So it's not like therapists are the only folks in private practice. Think about doctors, think about other types of therapy, occupational, speech, physical therapy. Think about chiropractors and dentists, and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Any exchange in a health services umbrella, any exchange for services and money, is what a lot of other businesses are doing. Golly, you can even go beyond healthcare and go into like, why is a plumber successful? How is a restaurant successful? How is a restaurant successful and makes it through a pandemic, right? So look for that information and then draw some conclusions about what's good about that. I mean, you mentioned networking. Part of the reason we've been successful as a practice is that we do a lot of networking, which is just talk to people. It can be in formal settings, networking events. That, by the way, if you don't have in your area, you can start a networking event. That's exactly what we did 6 years ago in the Katy area, and we, except for this time around, have not missed one. Just create a networking event. Yes, you need to put a little bit of work into where am I going to be holding this meeting, how do I invite people to come to these meetings, but you can start your own networking event, or go to the networking event that is held in your town, because likely there's some things going on, even if it's not just particular to mental health. So yeah, learn, and then be self-aware about how you learn, and then devote time and energy into learning that way. So for me, shadowing successful people has been very helpful, because I can pick up on ideas, thoughts, way of behaving and thinking about the business that then I can implement on my own business. um, so you can follow certain folks that have good content out there into how you go about creating good, successful local businesses. And right now, the information is not the problem. Access to the information is the least of our problems. I mean, it's all out there. It's a matter of just go grab it and then implement it. And that's, you need to learn to manage the fear factor. So here's what I mean by that. You learn to do this afraid. You don't wait until the fear is gone. You just learn to do it afraid. Like right now, maybe this conversation can be to a certain level of being uncomfortable, but we're doing it. How are we doing it? Because we're pushing through the fear. We're doing it afraid, right? Could people out there judge and think that this is a waste of our time? And what are these two dudes talking about? They don't know. Could maybe yes. Maybe it's not for them, right? It's for someone who can find the value in it. That's why I do it. It can bring you value, which may or may not bring me direct value down the road, that's not the point. And if we share this with someone else, it hopefully brings value to them. Does that make sense?
Yes. Yes. Yes, it does. What, first off, how long have you been in practice for now, by the way? Just curious.
So I moved to the United States in 2005, but I didn't start my practice in 2005. So this year is my 15th year since I moved to the US. I'm originally from Spain. And it took me probably 6 years since I moved here until I actually opened my doors for private practice. So that will be 9 years. My practice is 9 years old. Next year, we'll be celebrating our decade of being open, which is a great
wonderful
milestone, because
that's awesome.
As you know, a lot of startups, a lot of businesses don't make it 10 years. So, and my goal is to maybe have it for another 50 or so. Maybe not that long.
So what things can you tell me, what has worked for you to be able to remain in business? I mean, obviously, it's not just it's obviously not just the great therapy and work that you and your staff have been providing, but how have you been able to remain in business like that? I think that's a fear that a lot of LPCs that are just getting ready to go out into the field, or just even some like myself, just as students, just trying to prepare and to learn. So, what do you feel has worked for you to remain in business these years?
That's a good question. I wish I had the exact perfect answer, and then I can bottle that, right? And we can go sell it in the corner. The reality is, and by the way, I have, so we know about 9 minutes or so left
for
this conversation. But one of the things that I think of when I think about the answer to that question is tons of self-awareness. And what I mean by that is, in this field and in this profession and in many others, the market just needs and wants certain things. So one of the things that I think has been very helpful for me is that, well, in terms of demand for counselors in private practice, I know that being a male helps. And that has nothing to do with being biased towards males. It has to do with the fact that it's a female-dominated field. So when people seek male therapists, they have less options. Now, another thing that has been very helpful for me, I guess I do have a say in that, is being bilingual. I was not born bilingual. My parents did not teach me English. I learned English on my own because I wanted to. So if you don't speak another language, I'm living proof that even someone who is not that smart can learn another language. So go learn other languages if that's something that you think you're willing and able to take on and accomplish. So just by the fact of being a bilingual male therapist in the context of huge Houston, Texas, soon to be the third largest city in the country, it's just helpful, right? And so here's another thing for me. By the request of the client, well, let me preface it with that, by the request of the client, I can incorporate some of my faith and my spirituality into the context of providing counseling. So I'm a Christian, and I include that. Now, I don't have we don't advertise as a Christian counseling center, but if someone comes in and they want to incorporate their Christian faith into the counseling process, that's something that I'm comfortable doing. So, I think that those three factors for me have worked. But for a lot of people, that they might not have a choice. Or they might not want to convert because of that, So just know who you are and what you do, and then you can appeal to that population. And that can also be about the demographic that you're willing to treat. And then it's very important to know who you treat and who you don't. And so that has to do with self-awareness. Now, it's okay to not have complete 100% self-awareness, which I don't think happens anyways, right? But it's okay to develop your self-awareness as you're growing in the profession.
Mm-hmm.
But if you have a hint for what works in the market, play to that versus trying to be someone who you're not.
Right.
That's the recipe for a failure, is to try to be someone who you're not.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Learn who you are and be more of that. That's a better strategy.
Yeah. And I think that that sometimes could be a problem for a lot of these clinicians is, you know, I guess how I'm trying to say is that, yeah, you kind of have to, I feel like you kind of have to find your niche as far as, you know, which demographics you want to work with, you know, and what is most needed out there at times. So, you know, for myself, you know, I have experience working with at-risk youth, and I've also worked with our veteran population here in San Antonio. You know, we're labeled as Military City USA because of all of the bases that we have here in San Antonio. And obviously, my brother suffers from PTSD. A lot of my family is military. So one of my research articles that I did during my internship was on PTSD and moral injury. So, you know, for myself, you know, I really want to try to get as much experience as I can working with these different I don't want to say populations. I
No,
feel
that's
like I'm kind
okay.
of
That's
categorizing.
no, that's an okay word. It is what it is. But you right now, Andres, you have the self-awareness to know that you are okay working with these populations, right? So you can, you know, go deeper into that area, knowing that likely you're going to enjoy the journey and
Yeah.
find some meaning and purpose
Yeah.
in what you're doing, because you're aligning your values with your responsibilities. And out of that, you can get a lot of meaning and purpose. And if those things are not aligned, look, if you are having these true values and then you're not doing anything related to those values, guess what? It's not going to give you any sense of meaning or purpose. And it's just a matter of time, right? So now your values can be very different than mine, and that's okay. We don't have to align our values. We just have to stay in our lanes and be sure that we are being responsible with the values that we have identified for ourselves. So that's true for our clients too, by the way. That's not even as therapists. That's just as human beings, what we just talked about. If we can help people align their values with the responsibilities, the outcome is going to be eventually meaning and purpose. So anyway, that's your philosophy piece.
No, that's wonderful. Thank you. No, I agree with that. Thank you so much. I just want to check how much time we have left. I know you said we got 9 minutes.
We've got 3 minutes.
Okay.
We're good. We got one more. Let's do one more.
One more question.
We land this plane.
Okay. Let's see here. Trying to make sure most of the questions I have here you've pretty much answered so far.
Great.
Let's see.
Let's save the best one for last.
Best one for last. Okay. Well, I'll try to come up with this one on the top of my head. Let's see what I can think.
That's fine.
What I guess what can you leave me with towards, you know, the end of our chat here? What is the best piece of advice you can give to myself or anyone that's in my position right now, you know, looking ahead into, you know, wanting to build a successful practice and wanting to remain in practice? Just what is, and not even in that, just any advice you can give for a student like myself wanting to move forward, whether it be practice or things to focus more on in school, anything you can give me.
Yeah, I would say do exactly what we're doing here is surround yourself by people who've been there, done that, ask lots of questions, have the humility to reach out and learn, and make this journey enjoyable as you go about it. The work with the clients is incredibly rewarding. If you have any sense of being in the helping profession, that's going to come with. But it's success is a combination of learning, to be smart and learning information, but also having the grit, having the tenacity, having the go for it attitude, mindset. So you need both. If you just have one and not the other, you're going to be in trouble. So you just have to keep at it, and you have to be patient. There's a lot of patience involved with that. You cannot just want this done by tomorrow. You got to stay at it. And I'm a decade into it. It's like, wow, it's great. How do you do it? Well, I don't know, work really hard for a decade. So that is the secret formula. Like, work your butt off for a decade, and maybe you get to see some good outcomes. And so, but last but not least, right now is really important to focus on being healthy and keeping everyone around us healthy. So we'll live it with that.